All right, welcome. Today, we're going to get into something really cool, something that's at the heart of almost all programming, teaching your code how to think. We're talking about mastering conditional logic right here in Matlab, so your scripts can start making some smart decisions on their own.
So let's just start with a big question, right? How can your code actually make a choice? I mean, usually you write a script and it just runs straight down, top to bottom. But what happens when you need it to be a little smarter? What if you need it to react differently depending on the situation? How do you get it to pick a path?
You know, it might sound complicated, but I guarantee you do this 1,000 times a day without even thinking about it. It's like this. If it's raining, I'll grab an umbrella. Otherwise, I'll just leave it at home. See, you're checking a condition, the rain, and then you're acting based on the outcome. That simple, everyday logic, that's exactly what we're about to teach our code. And there's a name for this, of course. It's called conditional logic. Really, it's just a fancy way of saying we're controlling the flow of our program. We set up a test, a condition, and if that condition is true, the code does one thing. If it's false, well, it does something else, or maybe it does nothing at all. This is the absolute bedrock of writing code that feels smart and responsive. Okay, let's dive into the first and most fundamental piece of the puzzle, the simple if check. Think of this as your code's very first decision point. The syntax for this is actually super clean. It all starts with the word if, and then you put the condition you're testing. If that test comes back as true, Matlab runs all the code you've tucked inside that block. But if it's false, it just jumps right over it, pretends it's not even there. And here's the really important part. You always have to close it out with the end keyword. Don't forget that. All right, let's look at a real example. Say we have a variable num, and we set it to 10. Then we ask Matlab a simple question. Hey, is num greater than 0? Well, since 10 is definitely greater than 0, that condition is true. So Matlab dives into our code block and runs that disp command, printing the number is positive to our screen. See? Easy. And this is where it gets really clear, looking at the two paths side by side. On the left, num is 10, the condition is true, and boom, we get our message. But check out the right side. We set num to -5. Now, is -5 greater than 0? Nope, not a chance. So that condition is false. And what does Matlab do? Absolutely nothing. It just skips that block of code entirely and moves on. No output at all. Okay, but just skipping things isn't always what we want, is it? Sometimes, if our first plan doesn't work out, we need a plan B. So, what's the alternative? Well, that's where the else statement becomes our best friend. When we add an else, we're creating a genuine two-way street. If the condition is true, the code in the if block runs. Simple. But if it's false, control jumps down to the else block, and that code runs instead. The key takeaway here is that one of these blocks, and only one, is guaranteed to run. It's one or the other, never both and never neither. So let's put this if-else idea to work on a classic problem, figuring out if a number is even or odd. And for this, we're going to use a handy Matlab function called mod. All it does is give you the remainder of a division. So if we take any number and divide it by 2, well, if the remainder is 0, we know for sure that number has to be even. And that's our perfect condition. This table just lays it all out so clearly. Let's trace it. Top row, we input the number 12. Is the remainder of 12 divided by 2 equal to 0? Yes, it is. The condition is true, so we execute the if block and get our even output. Now, look at the second row with the number 7. Is the remainder 0 this time? Nope, the condition is false. So the code skips the if block and jumps straight to the else block, telling us the number is odd. It's flawless, predictable logic every single time. All right, so if-else is great for a simple yes or no, this or that situation. But life is usually more complicated than just 2 options, right? What happens when you've got 3, 4, maybe 5 different possibilities? For that, we need a way to chain these decisions together. And the tool for that job is the else-if statement. Now, here's the absolute #1 rule you have to remember about this. Matlab is lazy in a smart way. It checks these conditions strictly in order, from top to bottom. The very instant it finds one that's true, it runs that code and then it completely bails on the rest of the chain. It doesn't even look at the other conditions. You know, a grade calculator is like the perfect poster child for this. Think about it. You've got a score, and you have to check a bunch of things. Is it 90 or more for an A? If not, okay, is it 80 or more for a B? If not that, what about 70 for a C? This ladder of questions is precisely what if, else was born to do. So let's pretend we're Matlab for a second, and our score is 85. First question, is 85 greater than or equal to 90? Nope. False. Moving on. Next question, is 85 greater than or equal to 80? Yes it is. That's a true statement. So we execute the code for that block, displaying grade B, and then, and this is the most important part, we're done. We stop right there. We don't even bother checking for a C or a D. We found our answer. And that whole process boils down to the golden rule of these chains, the one thing you really need to drill into your head. In an if-else structure, one and only one block of code will ever run. It's a winner-take-all situation. The first condition to come back true wins, and the game is over.
Okay, so you've got the fundamental building blocks down now. Before we wrap this up, let's go over a few pro tips that'll help you write code that's not just functional, but also super clean and easy to understand. First up, use your logical operators. The double ampersand, and, is for and, when you need two things to be true. The double pipe, or, is for or, when just one of them is enough. They let you build much more powerful tests. Second, and this is a big one for your sanity, indent your code. Seriously. Matlab will run it without indentation, but you and anyone else reading your code will have a much easier time seeing the logical flow. And finally, the one that gets everyone at some point, always remember to add your end keyword. Every single if needs an end. It's like the period at the end of the sentence. So what's the big picture here? Well, this is the moment your code grows up. You're no longer just writing simple recipes that run from step one to the end. By mastering if, else, and else if, you've just unlocked the ability to create programs that are actually intelligent, programs that can react and adapt to different situations. That's a huge leap. And really, that's the core of it. The power is officially in your hands now. You've got the tools to build decision-making right into your scripts. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. What decisions will your code make next?